Short-term, mid-term, or long-term? Even with an STR, there is some wiggle room when allowing for a minimum to maximum stay. To clarify, in the short-term rental world, when we speak of short-term, mid-term, and long-term guests, we can categorize them this way. Short-term STR, 1 day to 1 week. These are tourists mainly. Mid-term STR, 1 to 3 weeks. I occasionally see either tourists or folks moving to the area here. Long-term STR, 30 to 90 days. Traveling nurses often stay in an area for 3 months at a time. What do you prefer? Do you want only short-term guests, mid-term, or are you interested in long-term guests? It's difficult to predict the exact guest that will find your place appealing, but that answer will pretty quickly resolve once you have opened up for business. As my husband and I were putting the finishing touches on Cottage West, our first STR, I envisioned it as an artist and writer's retreat. I knew we were just moments away from a major highway hub and that our central location made it perfect for guests to jump on and off the highway easily, but I vastly underestimated the amount of one-night stays we would receive. Now, I embrace it. And because I handle my own cleanings, except while on vacation, that is a significant amount of income that stays in my pocket. Things to consider when deciding what length of stay is for you might include cleaning fees, proximity, involvement, and risk. Cleaning fees. For Cottage West, approximately 90% of our guests stay for 1 night. A few stay for a weekend, even fewer still stay for up to 5 days, and I don't see many requests for longer stays. For me, that's fine. It's hard to make a place dirty when you only stay 1 night, so I earn bank on cleaning fees. And considering that I handle all of the cleanings and live right next door, a solid 40% of our monthly income is from the cleaning fees. We charge $50 in cleaning fees for a 1-night stay and $60 for a stay lasting longer than 2 days. I take around 45 minutes to clean Cottage West. Yes, that means I'm cleaning it up to 7 days a week, but since it is right next door to me and I work from home, that's super easy. You may prefer longer stays. Maybe you work full-time and need to hire out the cleanings. Maybe you travel. Or maybe cleaning an STR daily is the last thing you want to deal with. Brief stays equal less mess, but potentially more time out of your week turning things over or arranging for a cleaner to do the work for you. Midterm, where guests stay anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks, might be more your style. Proximity. Your proximity to the property, or your ability to find others to manage the property for you, will affect the decisions you make on whether to offer reduced rates for longer-term stays. Proximity to your property can be a major influence on what bookings you require. I will admit that I'm a bit of a control freak. I can't imagine owning an out-of-town or out-of-state STR. Then again, I will never be an owner who has a dozen or more properties. I far prefer to provide a personal, hands-on experience for my guests. As I mentioned above, cleaning fees, especially if you are doing the cleanings yourself, can be a lovely bonus income. And this is, of course, tied to your proximity to and involvement in the STR you own. Not sure you can clean a place quickly and efficiently or up to your guests' standards? Don't worry, I will cover that later. Involvement. How involved will you be in the day-to-day operations of your STR? In my case, I handle pretty much everything except performing the big maintenance. I handle most of the guest interactions. I leave the specific brewery and sometimes dining recommendations to my husband. Track income and expense and adjust the nightly fees in order to increase occupancy and income. I clean the property, handle painting, plan improvements, and schedule repairs. As you can see, I'm very involved. I also don't work a job outside of the home. It helps that we live next door to our STR properties, making it incredibly easy for me to handle these tasks. Perhaps you work a steady 9-to-5 job. Perhaps you live across town, or you suck at cleaning. It's okay. Not everyone is cut out to do it, but in case you want to learn how, I've added detailed advice on cleaning your STR later in this book. I believe it is better to be more involved at first and slowly farm out the work to others as time goes by. After all, if you are running the day-to-day operations yourself, you know exactly what you need from others and can give them this information when they work for you. You will know how important a good response time is, what a truly clean STR looks like, again, I'll discuss this later in the book, and what you should stock it with. You will have worked out most of the hiccups and weirdness, and believe me, no matter how many details I give you, there will be situations I haven't covered, and you will encounter them and learn from them. Finally, the length of stay can affect your involvement. If you are working full-time and looking for longer stays where you don't need to be at the property often, then a longer stay would be quite attractive to you because there's less to do on a day-to-day basis. There is one other thing to consider. Risk. It can vary depending on what part of the United States or world you are in, but in most cases, once a guest crosses the 30-day mark for occupancy, it may entitle them to certain protections under local housing laws. There are a few areas in the United States where guests are automatically conferred rights as tenants no matter how short of a time they stay, and I urge you to be very careful in those areas. Once a guest has rights as a tenant, either right away in those few areas or after 28 to 30 days of occupancy, it can be extremely difficult to remove them from your property. You can mitigate these risks by requiring a guest to sign a rental contract with you in situations where they might stay long enough to qualify as a resident, but it won't eliminate that risk entirely. If they violated their contract, you will still need to sue them in court. Keep these in mind as you continue to plan and roll out your STR property. Much of this might depend as well on the guests you can expect to have. Join, if you haven't already, several STR groups in your area. You can usually find them on Facebook by searching for Airbnb or VRBO or short-term rentals or STR. These groups, especially local host groups, can help you in a variety of ways, up to and including identifying the perfect length of stay for your STR. I have listed the links to many of the ones I belong to under Part 10, Podcasts and Facebook Groups. Wear and tear. I see many people in the Facebook host groups who say they avoid 100% occupancy because of the wear and tear. I profoundly disagree with this statement based on my own experiences as both an STR host and a LTR landlord. The best way to avoid wear and tear would be to only rent your STR for one-night stays. Frankly, with one night and the proper screening in place, no locals, your guests rarely have the opportunity to create wear and tear. Give them a few days, a week, a month or more, and be damned if they won't do some damage. My worst stories come from my long-term rental, where renters have let their dogs eat the trim, broken holes in doors, stopped up plumbing, and not cleaned for their entire tenancy. My next to worst stories have come from locals who stayed a few days at a time, with one set breaking 2 new knives, trying to dig their way into 100-plus-year-old door trim to break into the basement and steal the copper. Joke was on them. Even if they had gotten through, we did everything in packs. My point is this. There is only one time a one-night stay caused me any difficulty at all, and it didn't even qualify for wear and tear. When considering how often you will host guests, please mark wear and tear off the list when considering the shortest of stays, one night. Most likely, they will arrive late and leave early and barely touch the amenities. Let's move on to the burning question. How much will you make?